Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Wittwer. On today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Sohailla Digsby, who is a registered dietitian by training, but she's done a whole lot more. She is a speaker, one of the most dynamic speakers, and you're gonna hear it in this episode. She's such a great speaker. She's an author. She has a cookbook. And she is the CEO of Best Body Nutrition and Fitness. So she's done a lot of things and really evolved her business. So if you're an individual coach, if you're a dietitian and you're looking at doing more than just working with clients, this is going to be a great episode and you're going to get a ton of nuggets out of this. She still does work with clients, but she's on stage speaking, she's writing, she's creating courses, and created an incredible business out of the knowledge that she has garnered over the years. So this is going to be a fun episode. I know you're going to enjoy it. Sohailla is a great speaker. Let's get to it. I'll see you on the flip side. I hope you enjoy this episode with Sohailla Digsby on the Coach Catalyst podcast. Sohailla, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast.
Thank you.
I was super excited to have you on. You know, you've done a bunch of work with us at Coach Catalyst and created some programs and that kind of stuff. We've never really got a chance to really dig into your backstory. And so you're officially an RD, but you kind of help the fitness world, the nutrition world. You're not necessarily like a traditional RD. And so let's kind of go back. Was that always where you wanted to be? Or did you start in like the clinical world and then like decide that, okay, I don't want to be here. I want to be kind of out in more of the fitness world?
It started a little further back than that when I was trying to determine my major in college. I was a dancer up until then. And I thought, you know, what do you do when you decide you're not dancing anymore after you have been your whole life? So I thought maybe teach fitness, you know, that was the next best fit. So I started doing that when I was 19 in college. And I loved that. So I was debating between exercise science and dietetics as my major, but I decided to go with dietetics and then keep teaching because I realized I loved exercise, but I really loved the motivating and the teaching of it more than just the studying of it. And I love just the pure study of nutrition enough to just read journals upon journals. So I thought that combination would be really good. So that's what I ended up choosing was dietetics. And that had me do an internship. The internship I did was pretty balanced. It had a decent community segment, but also a lot of clinical. And I knew that I would go towards fitness sooner, if not later. But I did do a couple years in clinical as I was advised to do so that I could get my feet really, really wet with all the disease states. I did that in South Carolina on the coast. So I got lots of diabetes practice. I was a cardiac rehab dietitian. I worked at a hospital that had a brand new gym. I picked my hospital according to that. I needed one that had a wellness center attached. So I knew the whole time I'd be doing wellness and prevention and fitness focus. So I got my clinical years in as I was advised, and I'm glad I did.
Right. So then what was the plan coming out of school? Was it like go work for more of a gym focused, a wellness focused company, or start your own company right from the beginning? What were your thoughts coming out of school?
I guess until I did my internship, I wasn't really sure, which I really appreciated that, 11 months of constant exposure to new things. And I liked public health, but my heartbeat is prevention. It always has been. And so I kept every rotation that I did, I would say, oh, how can I keep people out of this position? How can I keep people out of this position? And all the while I was working at fitness centers and I was developing programs that answered the questions in front of me. And I think one of the best things that I did was just listen to the needs of the people around me at the gyms where I taught. Because, as a fitness pro, you might teach at a few gyms at a time. So I'd hear one saying, would you like to teach a nutrition class, after your boot camp? And I'd be like, is it that way? Or would I rather teach it on a Saturday morning? Or, so I really just listened to what the different gyms wanted. And I ended up creating a role at the Metro YMCAs in the Augusta, Georgia, where I live now, Evans, Georgia area. So there were 7 YMCAs, and I created a position and wrote a proposal for a dietitian. We had one of the Metro branches was opening a brand new facility in January, and I thought, hey, this is good timing. Pitch it when they are going to get the most nutrition questions. So that worked in my favor. And then that particular gym group, that particular YMCA group, was creating a program called Team Lean that was focusing on wellness and weight loss. And so I became the Team Lean dietitian for that. So I was kind of pioneering what it looked like to work in a gym. And I had 3 little ones at home, so it was perfect because it wasn't completely full time, but it was just perfect for me to keep my feet in the game.
Right. So the Ys didn't have a dietitian on staff at that time?
No, and it's not super typical. Dietetics is a 5 to 6 year program, so it's a little cost prohibitive a lot of times for a new gym or a not super established gym or a chain anyway to have their own dietitian. So sometimes a chain will have a dietitian, but it's not super common to have one on staff. It's usually more a contract type piece.
Right. And so you basically were just like, hey, I'm going to write up a position for this company and then propose it and see what they say? Or did you have insider information where it's like, hey, they're going to be looking for this. We just need you to get a resume in?
They weren't looking for it, but they were expanding from a smaller gym to a bigger one. And I was already on their group fitness schedule for about 6 months right after having a baby. So I knew the staff. It was fairly small. I knew the staff there. And it just so happened somebody at one of the bigger YMCAs was brainstorming this weight loss program while I was pitching this proposal for a part-time nutrition position. So they heard, well, this is going to be possible because we'll have a dietitian to be on the Team Lean team. And so I got to jump in at that. I actually worked for Team Lean for that program for 9 years because they launched that program once a year for 9 years. But most of my work was at my one favorite Y out of the 7 that actually closed during the pandemic because it was in the higher rent district. So it was one of the one branches that was always just breaking even. So the pandemic just made them have to pull it. So I did teach there for 14 years in Group X and also, saw their consults. Usually through the personal training program is how I got connected with my clients.
Okay. So
I pretty much just wrote about used skills.
Right.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
So were you then were you an employee of the Y or were you a contractor and you kind of used the Y as a lead generation source for new clients, or was there a different kind of goal there?
It was tricky. I'm not going to say it was simple because I was on the schedule as a Group X. Right. And then when I proposed the RD role, they suggested that, okay, well, we'll just give you an extra hour. And, I got my Group X certification in a weekend. I got my RD in multiple years with lots of biochemistries and organic chemistries and microbiology. So I was like, it's actually not equivalent. So I had to do some education with them as to the difference in the pay scale. And so they actually gave me, we did it in increments. Like if I was teaching a Group X, I would put myself in for 1 hour. And the way they did it was like a bundle for when I was wearing my RD hat. So we actually made an agreement. And the hard part is in gyms, there's a lot of turnover. So I stayed there for 14 years,
Right.
but the leadership came and went. So I had to reestablish the importance of the position of a registered dietitian, and why did a registered dietitian make more than I needed when I was in my Group X hat making $20 an hour? Why was that different? So I had to kind of keep reestablishing that with each new batch of leadership, which honestly was pretty tricky for me. It helped me to hone some of my assertive skills, because I didn't come in with that goal in mind, because I'd already made a relationship with the director before I proposed it, but then he moved away.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they asked me to come to other branches, then I have to reestablish that. And sometimes there's a bit of a jaw drop, like, oh gosh, our best boot camp instructor makes the highest rate, and you want to make more than that. And I'm trying to stay equivalent to my field, out of respect for my field. So it was tricky, and it really tested me in lots of ways. And then I decided to kind of go about it a little bit of a different way. Once that YMCA closed, I decided to try to launch programs through trainers who are looking for somebody to help replace their Biggest Loser type program. Because I feel like, and I don't know if you see this, Trevor, I think a lot of fitness pros, they know that group synergy is beneficial. So they try to come up with a program, but a lot of times it's not research-based, it's not tested. The evidence isn't there for kind of what they're pulling from Instagram and who knows what, but they launch it anyway. And then I'm usually the cleanup crew on the clinical side for it. So I said, hey, what if I draw up the program? After the 9 years I worked in Team Lean and saw what worked and what didn't. And then after all my, at that point, about 15 years of one-on-ones in the fitness industry, and having listened for so long to a population that I feel like the research doesn't capture well, I thought, here's what I think is best. Here's an 8-week program that I drew up, and that was actually my first book, was an 8-week program. And basically all I did was listen to their complaints all the time, and just kept a running list in my mind of, I wish this, I wish this, I wish this, I wish my trainer could help me with this, I wish my gym had this. And just kind of thought, you know what? Let me create that, what I keep hearing people say they want. And then it was really cool, because I'd never been a quote salesperson or a merchandise peddler or anything like that. So I thought, this is going to be weird. I'm going to be trying to push this product. But in the end, they were like, I said, here's the book you asked for. And it was really easy, because it was what they asked for. So it was easy to sell, not easy to write, but easy to sell to that first batch of people. And then after I reached those local people, I'm like, okay, well, this book was a beast. Who else am I going to share it with? And then I started exploring some other opportunities that ended up leading me to you guys.
So, I mean, what's the name of the book?
Countdown to Your Best Body.
And so how did you get it off the ground right away? So you kind of were listening to the consumer. They were telling you all this stuff, kind of their issues, the things they're dealing with. And you wanted to create a program around that and get it to them. How did you ultimately get it out to people? Was it just like people on your list, or were you out doing kind of book signings around your local kind of bookstores and neighborhood, or how did you get it out initially?
As a Group X instructor, I had a following. And then I also, as a Team Lean dietitian, gave the weekly Team Lean seminars while Team Lean was going. And so I pulled all the different things I heard from both populations and from the trainers that were feeding me their people who, as we know, can't outtrain their bad diet, right? They're working really hard and they're still not seeing results. So I didn't even have an official email list. I didn't have a website at that point. And this was in, 2014, 2013. And so I really was mostly doing one-on-ones and Group X, and then working on that contract with Team Lean. But then as I was kind of bringing my own together, I thought, I'll just tell everybody. So I kind of just put it on Facebook and out to the emails that I did have, like, hey, I wrote this book that y'all asked for. If anybody wants it, I'm doing a book signing here and there, and I'm putting it on Amazon. And it kind of took off. And then I thought, I bet I could, go beyond my Augusta, Georgia area with this. And then I kept hearing of, gyms that were doing these terrible, in my opinion, Biggest Loser type things. And then the 2016 research came out about how poorly people fared long-term that were doing the quote actual Biggest Loser. And I loved that research that showed that, the dramatic things that people are doing can promote long-term functional gut issues, long-term poor leptin and ghrelin responses, and just really negative thing. So I thought, instead of everybody just thinking it's okay to do a crash diet, and even a lot of times supported by their personal trainer, what if I come alongside the personal trainer and I say, hey, if you don't have an RD on your team, virtually, I can be that. And I can provide you this 8-week program that I know is evidence-based. I know it's effective. I've tried it with over 1,000 people. Do you want to try it? And so I presented it at a fitness conference. And then from there, I sold, like in that 24 hours, I sold the most I'd ever sold in one 24-hour block, because people just needed it. So it was really fun. It just kind of exploded. And I was just super grateful, because, again, I think one thing I help business folks do is just to really listen. Again, the research isn't capturing the average fitness enthusiast. I don't think, the research is great for athletes on this side, and it's great for those struggling with chronic disease and needing medication, and that's being funded. But what about the people in between who are working out 4 to 6 days a week? They're 10 or 15 pounds overweight. Nobody's really capturing them, but they have a whole host of their own challenges that are really different from those of the others. So I feel like there's a need for somebody to study this population, even if it's not, in an official funded study, just to be really listening for that clientele. And so a lot of times when I talk at a fitness conference, people resonate like, okay, this is what my people need. They need somebody who gets the struggles of your average fitness enthusiast.
Right. Oh, that's great. And so when you initially launched it, why do you think you were successful with it, with getting it out there? Was it just kind of the body of work that you had leading up to that point? Did you do a good job of like capturing people's email addresses so that you had like an audience to be able to launch it to? Or why do you think you were successful with it? What do you feel like you did right?
It's funny that you say that with capturing emails, because we know, getting in somebody's inbox is the best thing, right? I think you and I probably agree on that over social media and things like that. So this was early virtual days, right? 2013, 2014 is when it came out. And so I was kind of new on Facebook. I don't even think Instagram was a thing yet. And so private Facebook groups, now called membership sites, that wasn't a thing. Like, this was all really earlier. It wasn't in the Southeast anyway that I had heard of. So it was all kind of new. And so my reach was very much more organic than that. So it was like, I literally taught at 3 different gyms, and I just told them all, hey, when I finish my classes, I put on my RD hat. If any of you guys have nutrition questions, I'm going to be doing this launch. And so it was kind of like really organic among the people who had already known me from classes, liked me from my formats, and trusted me as a Group X instructor, but didn't necessarily know me as a registered dietitian. So, and then, I think one thing I did do well was strategically place it in the time of year when people are more ready for change. So I did launch in January, and that was definitely a win. I think the worst time you can launch something is, in hindsight, as between June and July, when so many people are traveling, especially if your target audience is kind of middle age and often parents, where they're, chasing after kids and going on vacations. And so, along the way, I learned the importance of timing. So I felt like the January launch was a big win. And then the same with the cookbook. People requested, of course, a menu plan to go with this 8-week challenge. What am I going to eat? You told me to clean up what I'm eating, but I don't know what to eat because my recipes don't coincide with what I'm trying to do. So every 2 years, I'd come out with like another piece that wasn't ever part of the original plan. It was just listening, and people saying, oh, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. And I'm like, okay, so if I make that and if I create it, you want it? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, let me grab your email and I'll tell you when it's out. And then I kind of, did my first free 1,000 emails on MailChimp and thought, okay. And then just kind of kept building from there. And then getting in fitness conferences is really what kind of helped me reach beyond that 1,000. Prior to that.
And so
it was just a handful at a time.
It was an 8-week program, right? And were they just getting the book, or were you then coaching them with the book as kind of a supplement to the coaching?
So, and again, this was kind of before coaching was a big thing, right? So I mean, I don't know, Trevor, when did you start really coaching with that term?
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is room for opportunity.
Is badass. Is fucking awesome.
Over-delivered. They talked about it, and they definitely did it. Is amazing. It's just been invigorating.
Is exemplary. It's phenomenal and just a great time with great people. And you feel like in Ohana, you feel like a family.
It's unreal.
Is awesome. What will help separate the 1% from the 99% is a really well thought out event, well conceived, well planned, and well executed.
It's such an amazing event to be at in order to grow your business and network with other professionals.
It is top tier. It's one of the best I've been to in the business. It's been unbelievable, and I'm just excited to finish out the day here and keep making connections.
Is an event that you will be very happy that you have attended because next year is going to be even better than this one.
Is freaking badass. If you're not here, you're missing out. See you next year.
I mean, I started in like the personal training world, and that would have been in like 2006, maybe 2007, 2008. But as far as like coaching, I mean, we probably haven't seen, I mean, the pandemic really pushed coaching virtual very quickly, but I mean, probably the last 10 years, I would say.
Right. So that was, you know, at the very early spot of that around 2014. Mm-hmm. So what I decided to do when I launched my first book, and this was a little different than the YMCA, because the YMCA where I was working, that was when I was kind of phasing out because I had to re-advocate for myself so many times with the transition of leadership. By that point, I was kind of ready to just kind of go a different direction. And so this is when the gym that I still teach at now, and it's called Evans Fitness Club, Big City Fitness in Your Backyard. So we're not in a big city, but they wanted it to be like a big city gym. And it has a really fabulous big city gym feel. And they had a medical weight loss center in it. And medical weight loss isn't my cup of tea because I'm a prevention person. So I'm not necessarily suggesting people take medication on the front end. I'm not saying there's no place for it because I've seen there's a couple places for it, but my heartbeat, like I said, is prevention. So I said, would you like me to come alongside you guys as you launch? And again, watching your timing is everything. So this gym they opened on 12/12/12 because I remember the opening date. So December 12th of 2012. And I had gathered a lot of things for my 8-week program, but I had not put it into the book form yet. And I thought, I'm going to beta test it on this place. They're opening it. They have a Smoothie King in the back and a medical wellness facility in the back. So I asked if I could work at that as a contractor. The gym already had people coming in that were, wanting next level help with their fitness beyond just group X and things like that. So they had an audience and I didn't have to create my own. Some of them already knew me because of group X. And so I kind of piloted with I think it was about 30 people, and it wasn't in book form yet. It was actually in a little binder. And that was kind of my beta test. And I learned some good lessons in that as to what, quote, normal people who aren't fitness enthusiasts aren't willing to do in the exercise or nutrition challenge world. So I adjusted that based on what was more realistic for the average fitness enthusiast, and used a lot of that. And then that setting didn't stick for me because they started adding some chemicals to their regimen that I was not a fan of. That, in particular, some things that had people eating like under 1,000 calories and losing their hair and unable to walk.
Wow.
Well, and I was just like, yeah, I'm part of like wellness. I'm not part of that. So I ended up not staying with that facility, but they sure did have a good pilot zone for me that I appreciated.
So how did that work then from a economic standpoint? Because they essentially had the audience, right? You had the information, they had the audience. How did you come to an agreement around like the split, or how like people got compensated for that?
Yeah, I think that's really important to really get to know the people you're serving in terms of the facility and what they want. Because since then, I have Already on Your Team brand where I come alongside people all over the country and help them with their nutrition programs. And still, I'm finding that depending on what side of the country you're on, what kind of studio you're in, whether it's, yoga based and Pilates based versus boot camp or, just different vibes for different centers. So you just have to be, again, a good listener. And I found that gym in particular was open to a split. So as people came in, the amount that they paid, I told them what I needed per person for the program, and then they priced it accordingly, and then they took the top. But I'm telling you, I take about 20 fitness pros and gym owners and personal training, boot camp directors, things like that, per twice a year, 20 different ones. And they launch my program now in their centers, the Best Body Countdown. And I really have to kind of sit with them on the phone sometimes because they're not in my area usually, and say, hey, what do your people need the most? Do they need you to build this in with a 3-time-a-week boot camp offering or with a twice-a-week personal training offering? And so what I've landed at is I have a base price for my program and my team support. And so, let's say you had 10 people you wanted to put on my program this fall when I launch, I would charge you for the 10 people. We would ship you the materials and support you for the 8 weeks and the previous weeks to help you launch it. Then we'd invoice you for the 10 people times the price of the program. And then you could bill it at whatever you wanted, considering your zones of genius that you offer. But I'm coming alongside you so that you don't have to create a 4-week now or an 8-week, whatever, because now I have year-round programs that are seamless and feed one into the next. My next one coming up is a 4-week one for the month of May. And then, they all feed up, but most of mine are they're all between 4 and 12 weeks, but my signature one is that 8-week one that I started with.
Cool. And so how did you then ultimately start getting on stages? Because I know that's something that a lot of coaches maybe aspire to do, is they want to be on stage, and they want to teach, and they want to educate. So how did you get that first speaking gig?
Well, speaking had been part of what I'd been doing forever. When I first got that clinical job, I was looking for something where that would be a part of it, because I just love a crowd and love teaching about nutrition, making it practical, making it fun and interesting. So I'd been doing that for a long time, like at the hospital gym wellness center. I did a monthly program. And then when I moved, I did monthly programs like that. So I loved that aspect, and I knew that would help me get the word out. And again, this is kind of pre-social media. So if you wanted an audience, you would have to go get them. You couldn't do it from your home computer. So I started looking at the places that I had been going to get my continuing education credits as a fitness pro. And I would say, even when I attended those, in the 90s as a Group X pro, I would see Petra Kohlberg and Len Kravitz and people on the other side and be like, I could do what they're doing one day. When I'm ready, I'd like to do nutrition on their side of things. So that was always in the back of my mind. And 3 days ago, I presented alongside Len Kravitz, and he's a friend of mine. So, full circle from when I first met him at, almost 30 years ago now. So I remember seeing them and saying, I feel like I could make that big impact that they're getting to make. So I was getting continuing education as a group exercise pro while I was writing my book. And there was this is while I was considering writing my book. And I ran into another dietitian, and she had a book, and she was teaching on that side, and I was on the consumer side, on the customer side. And afterward, I pulled her aside and I said, hey, tell me how this works. And she's like, yeah, we tried it for a little bit. And she's like, if you have an idea for a book, it really is like a shoe-in. If you can put something in someone's hands that say, if you flip through this, you can learn all about who I am, what my philosophy is, and who my target is. And it gives you that instant credibility if you did a good job on it. So here it is. So she said, if you have a book, you should put it in their hands. And so that's actually what I did. I remember it was May of 2014. And I said, hey, I wrote this book. It came out in January. This conference is coming up this fall. If I ship you the book and tell you a little bit about what I do. And they actually had kind of a space where they could use a registered dietitian, because the one that had told me about it the previous year was traveling less. And so again, the timing was really good. And they liked the book. And so for the first session they gave me, they told me, I said, okay, what's the payment arrangement, in the end, after they said I could do it. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't pay. And I was like, what? Like in my mind, you get paid for work. And the way they kind of looked at it, the way I figured it was more like it was almost my audition. They never said the words audition, but I thought, okay, what they're doing is they're going to see if I'm legit. They're going to see if I show up on time, if I bring the energy, if my book is all it's at. And that was the day that I remember where I was, and I was like, I am paying so much for this swanky hotel. I hope this works out. And it did. It was a big hit, and a bunch of people bought my book on Amazon that night because I didn't have a booth for it because I was, auditioning in my mind. And so my Amazon sales spiked that night big time. And I thought, this is something people really need. And so then that same company asked me to come to a different fitness event again without pay. And I reached out to some fellow dietitians and I'm like, what do you think? And they're like, no, ma'am, do not give your services away for free. You're going to undermine your massive education. You're going to hurt our industry. And so some people, scolded me for the thought of it. And I finally decided again, like, this is my audience. Fitness is what I love the most. And people who are working so hard in the gym and are not getting the results they want, it's because nutrition is the missing piece of the puzzle. And my book had self-assessment in it, which many diet books did not. They just told you what to do. And people would say, well, I think I am doing that. And I don't know what's happening. And mine said, here's what to do. And are you? Are you still doing it? And then 5 days later, check this box if you're still doing it. So I knew that they needed the self-assessment and consistency, the box checking and all that you and I have talked about before. I knew they needed that. So I thought, no, this is a different approach. I think I'm going to take another risk and then fly to this, other state, put myself up in this swanky hotel again. And then after that, if they really love it, I'm going to say, here's my fee. And so that's what I did. And I learned that you don't really say this is your fee in this industry. You don't just walk in and tell them what you want. Since then, I have learned you listen. Again, you learn and you do your research. You don't just walk in and say, I'm all that. Here's what my fee is. I hope they take it. And you also have to consider what you get on the back end that they might not give you on the front end. And that's something that, I've learned as I've evolved for sure.
So even though this was like a fitness conference, you are having them purchase the book, and it's really a consumer book, right? Like, I mean, this is helping the consumer, the end person, be successful within an 8-week journey. But you found that at these conferences, the coaches were purchasing this book. And were they then using it with their clients, or did they typically come on as coaching clients then, where you help them kind of implement this with their client base?
Yeah. So kind of at first, they were just buying, like you said, as consumers. And I think the average fitness pro is a little tricky when it comes to nutrition because they're a consumer and a service provider at the same time when it comes to nutrition, right? Because a lot of them haven't nailed down their fitness. They haven't nailed down their nutrition journey. They've got their fit down, but they're not sure, what's my philosophy on this? Do I want to go with the diet of the month or do I want to go with a philosophy that sticks? And so they would be trying to figure out their own journey. And so a lot of them would do it alongside. They'd say, I have like 5 or 6 clients that are needing this too. I'll do it with them. And then I would invite them into my Facebook group and say, you can do it with me and my 30 or 40 clients that are doing it in this private Facebook group where I'm providing support. And then I found that another person would say, hey, can you do it with me out of DC? Can you do it with me out of this area? And I'm like, yeah. And so as Facebook grew and private Facebook groups evolved, that's what I started doing. And I'd say, okay, I can only take 20 at a time because now I'm shipping book, cookbook, and then eventually adding some other things that were products that I felt like they really needed for success, a measuring plate and an infuser bottle, mostly because they were doing things right, but in too much volume or with too little fluid or doing other fluids that were backfiring on their progress, as you may know. And so I was added some different things to it. So now I have what I call the countdown kit, and it comes with, the book. I actually have the cookbook right here on my desk, like a good dietitian would. So it's full color and it has all the examples, and it utilizes that measuring tool and the water bottle tool, the infuser one, and it shows them how they can actually make it practical. So now that little countdown kit exists as my program, that if anybody resonates with my nutrition philosophy and wants to help people make an 8-week lifestyle change, they can reach out to me. And I do 4 one-hour trainings over a 3-month period for each launch in January and then again in September. And it's worked out really well. And of course, the pandemic added some new twists to that, as you might imagine. But for the most part, I've been launching it with, about 15 to 20 facilitators twice a year, every year since 2014.
That's awesome.
Probably 2015. First year I was kind of feeling it out.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is that
the accountability off the back of that
is simplicity.
The support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
It's the drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the #1 accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
So you've been coaching for a long time now, right? And what would be some advice you'd give to your kind of younger dietitian self when you were first getting in the game? What have you maybe changed your mind about over the course of the last 10, 15 years?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think one thing is to really consider like your non-negotiables, your personal values. Like if my value is that I really, really like reaching big groups, and I'm not going to be super egotistical if they say, oh, we don't pay. Like at first I struggled with that. I gave that way too much energy, I think, to decide, should I, if they don't want to pay, what do I do? Now I'm like, okay, once a quarter I do a freebie. It's just part of giving, and everybody's given somewhere, hopefully, and there's paying it forward. So I do a quarterly freebie, and I hope that there's a give back on it. And I try to strategically place myself when I do those. But that was one thing I learned, is just not worrying about, I feel like some people's issues with money were being pushed on to me. It was their value issue. Some of those dietitians that I respected, and I still respect them, but, they were struggling with their value, and they were telling me that not charging this big amount that would have actually precluded me from all these huge opportunities I've had since then. So I'm so glad that I really just said, thank you all for your advice, and did not take it. And I think what I'm trying to say is not that it's not good to have advice, but it's good to just listen to the advisors, but honor your true values. So another one for me is I don't prefer to do high ticket clients. And I know that's all the rage lately. I have a big audience, so I don't really need to do that. And I'm very content being able to serve people who want to just be in my maintenance group for a small end, and people who want to visit with me monthly and take advantage of all my programs on the large end. And so I decided a long time ago that every coach that would talk to me would say, we need to get you a high ticket offer. And I just decided finally, like, if you met me, you'd know I was a missionary kid. You would know that I'm just literally grew up overseas. I'm just not trying to make this so exclusive. I really want to reach the masses. And so I want to have a range that allows me to do that. And if it means that I make a little less, thankfully I'm married and get benefits and things like that. So I just decided that honored my values the best. So I think every couple of years, reconsidering your values and your non-negotiables of what you'll do and what you won't do. And then listening to other advisors, but keeping in mind that there's trends of what they're going to advise you on. And in a decade later, that trend will be out.
So how have you structured?
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how have you structured then your business to create like an actual business, right? You decided not to do the $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 kind of high ticket type coaching. You decided to stay more on the lower end. So how are you kind of strategizing or thinking about your business model in order to make sure that that provides for you and your family?
I'm thinking of it in the long game. So this is how I think of it. Let's say you walk into a gym. When you go to the gym, you have this base amount. Let's just go with an easy number, $50 a month. And so you're there 2 months and you're not super motivated and you don't really know how to use the equipment. So you opt to buy a 2-month personal training package. Well, for those 2 months, you're paying much more than your $50 a month. But once those 2 months are finished, you don't just quit the gym and say, well, now I know how to work out and take out your whole membership. You keep paying the $50 a month, and maybe twice a year when you need a refresher or you need to get back on your game after a summer vacation or after a holiday, overdoing it, you go back to that personal trainer and you let them inspire you again. And when you go in this gym, you don't say, well, I shouldn't pay $50 a month for the gym because I didn't get on the treadmill. I didn't get in the spin room. I didn't get in the sauna. I didn't take advantage of everything. I should leave. So that's the big picture that I create with my membership. It's in Facebook. You get all the camaraderie. You get a weekly theme of the week, a curated insight from me and the articles and videos that I recommend that help you understand this complex topic that Dr. Google is trying to make you confused about and Instagram's not helping. So I give them my curated information. I give them access to me in that group. And that's like the baseline. That's like you're a gym member. And then if you want what I just gave as a parallel, if you want an 8-week personal training because you need to tweak something or refine something, then I have a program every quarter, every month, whatever it is, depending on the program that can help you tweak that. You can just stay as a quote gym member or as a membership resolve member is what I call them. Or you can choose to dabble in some of those things. Just like if you were at a gym and they said, hey, we're going to do this 10K with the gym and you get a t-shirt and whatever. Not every member signs up. So I decided to do it like that. So I have these multiple programs throughout the year that I offer. And if people want to jump in, they can do that. And then if you're kind of an elite member, like you have probably at your gym, the people who take advantage of every program that you put out there. And every time you do a launch, they're the new thing, then those are my VIPs. And so they pay a higher ticket because they get automatically all of my programs. And then there's a VIP that has quarterly sessions with me as a wellness coach or bi-monthly. So there's different levels so that everybody gets their needs met. And then if somebody comes upon hard times and they say, hey, you know, the pandemic did this and I had to change jobs or I got divorced, then I don't say, sorry, I can't serve you anymore. I say, well, we have a low tier that still allows you to have the camaraderie. So it's still like being back to the $50 gym member. And then when your times change again, you can jump back in and I'm here for the long haul. So that's kind of how I've decided to present it, if that makes sense, using that as the parallel.
Yeah, that's good. Because I mean, a lot of it's probably more different.
And I kind of made that up, Trevor. Test it.
Say that one more time.
I'm sorry. I think we broke up for a second. I said I kind of made that up a couple of years ago, that analogy, and I'm testing it, but it's working for me.
Yeah, I think it's good. It gives that. I mean, it's really a tiered approach, right? Where you have kind of your baseline, and then you have different levels of access to you, and it gets probably more expensive the more access someone has to you. And so, because this is more of a lower ticket model, one thing with a lower ticket model, we need more volume in order to make that work. Right. And so what does your lead generation look like now? How are you getting new people, new eyeballs, and bringing them into kind of your ecosystem?
Well, it's a win-win for me because I love speaking and I love traveling. And so I just keep pitching myself to conferences. And when they bring me on, I get a whole new audience. So I really maintain organic leads for the most part. I mean, I have a website, but to be honest, I do zero with SEO. And at one point I met with somebody who has a fabulous online business, and she has a lot of SEO. And she gave me this really big aha moment. I had lunch with her, and then she said, I was like, I guess I need to really get more active on Instagram, and I guess I really need to, take my SEO up a level. And she's like, well, what's your goal? And I told her my goal. And then she said, honestly, Sohailla, I think the people that are doing that are trying to get what you've got. So why don't you just nurture what you've got? And if you dabble in those things, cool. But if you don't, what's working for you is getting on those stages where in 1 hour you can get know, like, trust all at once. And then right after I give you something of value. And if you decide it aligns with what you like, we stay in contact. So I send out a weekly tip of the week, and I help people break down fads. And so I'm there for them. And that way, when they do have a nutrition upset or hit menopause or have some questions, then I'm here for them. And so that's what I've been doing over the years, is just every time I go to a conference, I sign I sign up or request admission to conferences where I know my target audience is. And then when I get in front of them, it's usually a pretty good fit. They're usually fitness pros or fitness-oriented fitness enthusiasts. And so I can speak their language, because that's what I've worked on for, almost 30 years with clients. And so instead of having to do a higher ticket and more effort on the SEO and more effort on the social media side, I make the effort to get on the plane and get on the stage, both of which I love way more than I love making posts. And to each their own, right? There's some people who are like, I do not want to travel at all. I don't want to, get on the stage. I don't want to risk any of that. To me, that's super fun. So it works out.
So would you say then your audience is really kind of the fitness industry, or are there like consumer facing conferences that you're able to kind of educate the everyday Joe and Jane that's just looking to improve their health?
It really is the fitness industry. And I'm sure if you've heard people say this, I'm sure that, when I first wrote my book, I was like, well, it can be for everybody, and people are like, no, who's your audience? And I'm like, no, anybody would like it. But in the end, like, I have these take 10 workouts that are 10 hard 1-minute segments. And in the end, it's not for everybody. It's really not, it's really more for somebody who's already active and who's tried what they think should have worked and it's not working. So it's really the best suited in gyms, boot camps, personal training. And every once in a while, someone will say, hey, I met you at church or whatever. Can I do your program? And I'll tell them, it is for a little more advanced, but I'll meet where you are and we'll customize it by doing one-on-ones alongside it. But for the most part, it really is aimed for the fitness pro and the people that they serve, which are the fitness enthusiasts, people who are already hitting it at the gym and not feeling like they're getting the results because something's missing. It's my job to help them figure out what it is. And each day of my 52-day countdown gives them this new perspective of what they could have been missing before. And that's my goal.
That's awesome. So really a lot of it is you partnering with the trainer that doesn't have the nutrition education or the skill set to be able to handle that and help them serve the client at a more complete level or at a higher level.
Right. And a lot of times they don't want to, they love the gym floor and they don't really want to buy a laptop. Sometimes they're like, nope, I got my phone and I got my clients and I don't want to go the big business route. And then there's the other ones that, I have like Texas A&M came and gave me 75 people doing my thing at once, so you have a good mix of corporate wellness, of boot camp gyms, and then of small personal trainers who bring 10 people to the table. And so for right now, I say, I end up having, when I say I have 20 spots, I end up having 20 facilitators. And the reason I limit myself is just because of the shipping and the inventory management. And eventually maybe I'll add more people to my team and do that more. But while I have 3 teenagers now at once, I'm focusing on just keeping it real, keeping it realistic. Because I really am, one of my values is not, giving up one thing to shine in one thing for just a short time and then looking back with regret. I'm pretty committed to not doing that. So that might be another thing I would tell my younger self is you got your whole life ahead of you. Look at each season separately and be like, what do I want to get most out of this particular season? And it might mean I turn down a great offer that'll come back to me in 5 years if I'm still going strong.
So you said something unique there that I want to unpack a little bit around like being a mom, but also building a business. And so how have you been able to kind of manage, raising 3 kids, all while kind of building a business from scratch and making that a piece of your identity as well?
I'll tell you a quote that I have to say to myself a lot. Let's see if I can say it exactly. I actually gave it at a fitness keynote just 3 days ago, so I should have it in the top of my head. It says, when you say yes, there's less of you for something else. Make sure your yes is worth the less. And it's by Louis Giglio, who's actually was based out of Atlanta. I've heard him speak before. Such good wisdom that I say to myself all the time. And I'm such a yes girl, but I have come a long way, that I say, okay, this opportunity is fabulous. If these are my 3 non-negotiables of this season, does it align with them? And I think in my early years, I might have just said yes to everything or thought that I could serve everyone. And now I'm like, I know who I want to serve. It's those middle-aged women who are trying so hard and they're so frustrated because they think they're killing it at the gym, but they're not getting their results. And their husbands too. So it's not I'm not focused only on women because a lot of times there's couples involved. But I mean, I know like they're the ones who I relate to and I feel their pain and I really, really want to serve them. And so when other things come my way, I have to say, you could serve that population, but it's going to take away from how good you are at serving your family and how good you are at serving your audience and how well you know their language because you're having to learn another language. And I've appreciated the influence of Michael Hyatt in my life, who, as a bestseller in productivity, has said things to me through his podcast. He's one of my running partners, unbeknownst to him, has said things to me like, if you know your why, you'll know your way. So why are you going that way if this is your why? So just lots of little phrases. And, you know me, Trevor, I love mnemonics and things like that because I think they're really memorable. So I memorize these little easy to remember quotes and a lot of my clients will just recite them to me. So that, of course, melts my heart because I want them to see this. And one of the quotes I tell my clients is my 00 mantra is opportunity does not equal obligation. And again, I am living it every day saying, oh my gosh, the college near me just called and asked if I would be their eating disorder dietitian. And oh my gosh, how much would I love that? Like, I love students. I've been working with an internship for 16 years. And I got so excited. I spent a whole day's worth of energy going back and forth on it. And then finally, I'm like, there is somebody whose wheelhouse is all eating disorders. My wheelhouse is very much prevention of and capturing them in the net of orthorexia before they go to the clinical level. So I finally just had to say, Sohailla, next time, if you already have your values laid out, it'll be so much easier that when someone asks, you can say, hey, that's not my wheelhouse. I love that age population. Here's who you should go to. And not spend a whole day going back and forth, just really honing, where my passion is and who I love to serve the most and where my gifting is and being okay if my gifting isn't, like if I don't love Instagram. Some people are like, you're losing so much out on not doing reels. And I'm like, I'm just not doing it. Like, I'm not willing to always have my phone in my hand. I'm really good at Facebook. I'm really good at my private groups and I'll post something here and there. But one of the things Michael Hyatt says in my ear when I'm running is humans have limits, manage your own load or somebody else will manage it. So these are lessons, and as I'm getting near 50, the older I get, the more I learn, come these little gray hairs come with some wisdom, I hope. So I would not have been this balanced in the beginning years. And here I am with my oldest in college and realizing, oh, thank goodness I fought for those. I got an amazing job offer his senior year that I almost took. And I actually was on the panel interviewing for it. And my colleagues with me, that they were like, why are we not interviewing you? Like, why? And I finally just said, this is my senior's last year. He has early release. He gets out at 10:30 in the morning and I won't be home till 6:30 and he works in a restaurant. And so that would be saying goodbye to him a year early for me to take this opportunity. And I'm like, if it's meant to be, it will come again. And I'm a strong person of Christian faith. So it's not that hard for me to say that because I've seen that time and time again in my life be a theme that comes true. So I just am like, I'm going to honor, this value and soon enough he'll be older. And if that job comes back open again, which eventually things do, nothing super permanent as we think, eventually things will come back around and maybe I'll do that. Or maybe I will, be so far in my business that I wouldn't even consider it. So anyway, I just think a lot of it is more value-based than business-based for me.
And was that something that you defined really early on and really thought about, or was that something that just kind of organically grew as you got older?
Oh, I definitely was something I was learning the hard way. And my husband's really good at being like, that's a no, that's a no. And I'm like, I mean, he even titled one month November. He said, nope. I mean, everywhere people would go, sorry, Sohailla's not taking applications for friendships. It is November. And he would joke about it because like so many people would pull for my time. And I'm such a passionate personality that I want to help everybody. And I mean, we have stories we could tell on that another day, but there's so many times in my life where he'd be like, it's November, babe. Or like, there's a limit to what you can give if you're human, and we just are. So the more I accepted that human limitation of like, if you keep sleeping just 5 or 6 hours a night, you're not going to be able to practice what you preach. Eventually it's going to catch up with you. Or if you keep, so he's helped me a lot with that because he's a much more, level-headed in terms of, I'm more of a like, charge, there's always things, there's opportunities. And that's my personality. So it's good. It's good to find somebody who helps balance you out. So he, thankfully, our 25th anniversary is this summer. So he's been balancing me out for a long time. Bless his heart. He's been helping me, but he also believes in me. He's like, babe, anything you touch turns to gold. So I just can't let you do everything or you'll be busy shining gold all the time and you won't have time for us. So I appreciate that he helps me, honor the values that I've told him all along are my truest values. And I don't want to have big regrets. I know we're all going to have some, but in the big scheme, I don't want that to be what I think about a lot once my nest is empty, which isn't too far out.
That's awesome. And kudos for you for having someone in your life that helps you stay true to that and really kind of defining also like, hey, these are the important things to me, and being able to say no to big opportunities can be a challenge. So that's awesome.
And I think everybody that, whether it's in a coach role or a friend role or someone that you tell them your values and then you give them permission to help you hold to those, get too excited or when you get too driven or whatever your tendency is. Those are my tendencies. I know they're not everybody's, but
what advice would you give to someone that's wanting to get into the industry? Maybe they're a young RD that's just kind of graduating from school, or they're someone really interested and passionate about health and fitness. Based on what you've learned over the course of your career, how would you advise someone that's just getting into it? What would be maybe the top 2 things that you would want them to think about as they're getting their career started?
I think one of them is to be flexible in the beginning, because I don't think most of us, if you graduate at 22-ish, I don't think most of us really have, obviously our brains aren't even developed till 25, right? I don't think we really know. And if we get so committed to one thing, we might box ourselves in, so I think it's great to have a general vision. And I think that's super important. But, for example, sometimes I talk with young dietitians and they might have been brought into the field because of their own GI distress and they learned about GI. So they're sure they're going to be a GI dietitian, gastrointestinal. Or they might have come into the field because they had an eating disorder and they're super passionate about helping people get off of fads and diets. And I've seen in life that sometimes when something is new and exciting, and the research even shows this with dieting, we go too hard at the beginning. Someone says, we want you to eat 500 calories less, to use a nutrition research example. We want you to eat 500 calories less a day. And then when we do the calculations, there's actually research that shows they're eating 700, 800, 900 less a day. Because our human nature is to charge at the beginning and sprint, and then we lose the energy. And so I think one thing I do with some of these younger dietitians that I talk with is I tell them, you're super passionate because you got trapped in an eating disorder, but don't assume that everyone who is trying to lose weight or manage their health is coming from the same place you are. Be a really good listener and be willing to meet them where they are. Because I think at the beginning, some of us are like, well, everybody must have a GI issue if I did, or everybody must need to do heavy muscle training if that's what works for me. And sure enough, 10 years later, you might realize, hey, heavy muscle training isn't my favorite focus anymore. I'm going to do this. And then you've pegged yourself in. So I think if it's your first 10 years of your career, assume that even though you're brilliant, you're still growing, and there's a lot of evolution that's going to happen in your thinking and in your philosophy as you mature and have more time and experience. And for me in my late 40s, I hope the same for myself. I hope that 10 years from now, I'm wiser and have more experiences to offer and more insight to offer my clients. So I don't think it ever ends. But I know for me, right out of the gate, I was probably a little too cocky and had my ideas of how everything should work. Don't do that, because then you have to get humbled, and that's never fun, right? So I think, just really meeting people where they're at, and being a super good listener, because I could come in on my high horse and say, I don't approve of X and such diet, and then somebody tell me why they're on it. And if I listen to their why, it might be like this was the first experience that told me there was this one thing that I wasn't a fan of. It was shakes, 2 shakes a day. Somebody wanted to do 2 shakes a day. And I was like, it doesn't really give you space to learn how to cook and to learn how to manage eating out and all these things. So my bigger picture philosophy was like, no, don't do the whole slim fast thing or all the shakes. But the longer I'm in experience with people who do the shakes, a lot of those people are coming out of a binge eating disorder that they didn't even know that they should be diagnosed with. And half the time the shake was protecting them from opening the pantry and the fridge, which was a massive no-no for them in the end. So we could help them with the shakes and let the dust settle. And then after, 8-10 weeks of the shakes, they've lost a little weight so they feel more comfortable in their skin. The dust has settled because they're not binging every other day. Then they're in a better place to introduce them. So that's just a small example of why, I don't need to get on my high horse of my philosophy and say, only whole foods work. Stop eating something out of stop drinking And so I've been just a lot more compassionate. I think life teaches you that over time. And just realizing that there might be a reason, there might be a why behind why this works for them that I have no idea. And so just exploring instead of coming in and being like I told you when I went to that first why, like, here's my fee, here's what I do. And I think you have to be proud of yourself. You have to believe in yourself. But I think the way someone described it to me as a business coach was super helpful. I don't know if you've heard this analogy before. They say you don't go on a date with someone and be like, when we get married, wouldn't do that, but you might have those in your head. You might have some of those ideas, but you go in and you say, what do you do for a living? What do you like to do for fun? And I thought that was a brilliant way for me to understand business better. So now when I go to a gym that I know in my head that what I have to offer will help them, instead of walking in and being like, here's my packages, here's what I'm going to do, here's how I'm going to save your world. Like, that confidence has helped me because I believe in what I do. I believe in what I've created. But at the same time, it would be similar to a first date where I'd walk in and be like, I'm all that, and you're going to do this, and that's not realistic for any relationship. So I was encouraged by a coach. I can't even remember who to give that credit to, honestly, but whoever said that was really insightful in that, you want it to be a relationship where you see what the needs are. And so I've really applied that to my one-on-one appointments and to not assume that I have all the answers without listening first. It's hard for me because I'm a talker, I'm a speaker, and that pays off too. But in the end, I like to really challenge myself to be a better listener, and then I'm a better provider for them and whatever their needs are. So I hope that answered your question, Trevor. I went on too long, probably.
That's great.
I'd recommend this to any coaches or even clinicians out there that are looking to build a business around a product that they already really believe in.
As a brand new user, just being sold on the streamline of being able to put everything in a centralized location, anyone that is just fumbling with Google Sheets to Facebook messages, group messaging, text messaging.
For anybody that wants to be able to coach their clients, many times you use different tools and resources, and when you're trying to manage that, even on a Google Sheet or on regular technology, you're limited on duplicating the data over and over.
I think if I'm going to, recommend the app for anyone, it's going to be myself. If I want to take my business to the next level, so definitely looking to do that in the near future here. Everybody can really benefit from it. I use it in the rehab sphere, but I also utilize it in the training thing. You can do the same thing with nutrition, right? There's so many uses for it.
For everybody, coaches, clinicians, anyone that kind of works in the industry, chiros, PTs, trainers.
This is one simple solution that we can create to all of our users and all our clients.
So if you want to create a way to systematize your business so you can scale, I have not seen a better product for that.
This has been great. So I think we're going to finish up with just some easy rapid fire questions that are unrelated to anything we've talked about so far, that are kind of fun that I like to ask everyone.
Okay.
So the first one is taco, burrito, or quesadilla?
Quesadilla. Definitely got to have crunchy in there.
All right. I like it. Something you've purchased recently for like $100 or less that has had a lot of impact on your life? Maybe it's electronic, maybe it's a book, anything that comes to mind.
Oh gosh. Recently, this is small, but Clark's flip-flops, $40. Support my back. I'm not going barefoot anymore.
Clark's?
So they look cute like
Okay.
flip-flops, but they
Clark's. That was the brand?
Clark's flip-flops, I promise. Annie.
I love it. All right, next one. What cartoon world do you wish you could live in for a week?
Cartoon world. That's a hard one. I'm not a big
You might
TV
have to go.
watcher.
You might have to
I
go
would
back to your
probably-
childhood.
I was going to say I'm going to have to go back to like Wonder Woman, which was cartoon-ish. Is that close
I
enough?
think we'll accept it. I think we'll accept that. I like it.
Okay. I'm glad you're not grading
I think
me.
that's good. All right, next one we got. If you were reincarnated as an animal, based on your personality, what animal do you come back as?
I don't know. I've got my dog right here beside me, and I think his personality is a lot like mine. I'd scoop him up, but he'd probably get annoyed with me. He's a Yorkie Terrier, and so he's very strong-willed and likes things just how he likes them, and wants to play really hard and cuddle really big, and then walk off and do what he wants. And so I don't know any other breeds of dogs because this is the only kind I've ever owned. But I think I would be very much like my buddy Enzo that says, you know what, there's flowers to smell out here, so I'm not coming right now. But in the end, will come and snuggle and be very loyal. So probably that.
I like it. All right, last one. If you could have dinner with anyone on the planet, past or present, who would you like to sit down and have dinner with?
That one would be easy. It would totally be Jesus. And I'm not being cheesy. Like, even when I watch the Chosen series, I'm like, I need that guy in my life right beside me who can be like, we don't want to go this way. That's not what I made you for. And that's really where I feel like I've gotten, all the biggest wisdom of my life is from Proverbs and Psalms and all things that he says, even though they're in a book, I don't get to speak to him in real life in the flesh yet. But that's who I would talk to. That's who I would ask because he made me for a purpose. I just want to be doing it.
I love it. If people want to find out a little bit more about you, I know you've got kind of like a little kind of freebie that you want to give away. Let me know about that.
Yeah. Okay. So just grab your phone and text the number 33777. So 33777. And then the word you would message is the word fitness. And that will give you, if you're a fitness provider of any kind, a coach or anything similar, that would give you the 9 most frequently asked questions that people need the answers to right away when they're making a lifestyle change. So it's a 2-sheeter front and back if you want to print it, or you can send it electronically so you can brand it and make it your own. The 9 most frequently asked questions when starting a new program. So fitness at 3377 is if you want that. And then that'll automatically let us stay in touch via email. And then my website is rdonyourteam.com. And then when you get there, you'll be asked, do you need a speaker? Do you want one-on-one help? Or are you a practitioner or a coach of some sort that wants to team together? And so you can go from there. And then you can always hit the contact button if you want to reach out from there.
Cool. And if people want to connect on the socials at all, do you have your Instagram set up, or do you have Facebook?
I do. It is set up. It's Sohailla Digsby. So it's at Sohailla Digsby, SOHAILLA DIGSBY. So my personal Facebook is Sohailla Digsby, and my Instagram also is. And I'm on Facebook often. I would say I'm on Instagram when I feel like it, here and there, or after a conference. But I'm getting better at that. As my kids get older, I'm giving myself more time there. But I'm just trying to be careful not to let it take too much of it. But yes, I'm there, and I would love to hear from you guys.
Cool. I love it. Sohailla, thanks for coming on. This has been fun.
Yeah, it has been fun, Trevor. I'll have to hear your story one of these days since we've known each other for a while and I haven't heard yours.
One day we'll get there.
Is it on the first podcast?
No, we haven't. Well, we kind of did a Coach Catalyst origin story. So there's bits and pieces of that. Part one of the origin story. We have probably 2 or 3 more parts to go. But yeah, bits and pieces all over.
Okay. Well, I'll listen to part 1, and then I'd love to be around to hear part 2 as well. Thanks so much for taking time to hear my story. I appreciate it. It's humbling to share with all of you. Hopefully everybody's got a nugget that they could learn from me like I've learned from so many others.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Sohailla.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.